Yes, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Am I audible and is it visible? Hello. Am I audible?
You are audible and visible.
Thank you. So first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Chitra Madam for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Today, I'll be speaking about evaluation of strabismus and strategizing treatment. Often, strabismus is perceived as a very difficult subject because I think probably because of the teaching. And unless we have teachers like Dr. Pradeep Sharma, we will find orthoptics difficult. But orthoptics is simple physics and maths, and any general ophthalmologist can start practicing orthoptics. So few essential equipments which we need. One most important thing I would like to highlight is the accommodative target. So you can see here, totally straight eyes, moment you put the accommodative target, you will get a gross esotropia. Then you need occluders, the prisms to measure the squint, and pediatric vision charts are important, particularly in preschool children, and the stereo acuity charts. And most importantly, the brain, which is tuned to seeing strabismus cases. So coming to the examination proper, we need to find out what are the things we need to get the information regarding the strabismus. First is to diagnose amblyopia. Second is to know the status of the binocular vision. Third is measure the deviation. And fourth is establish a cause for the strabismus. So the steps of examination can be like, first is to check the BSV. Next is to diagnose amblyopia. And third is to check the motility and the cover test. And finally, measure the deviation. And with the help of all this, we come to a diagnosis in strabismus. History is very important. The time of onset of the squint is important. So if the squint starts early and if it is constant, it has a higher risks of developing amblyopia and loss of binocular vision. Try to get maximum information before we start actual examination, because once you put the torch and examine, the child may become uncooperative. Coming to the steps of examination, first we'd like to see the binocular vision, because once you dissociate the eyes, you may not be able to get an accurate measurement of the BSV. And these are the different tests which are used for the diagnosis of binocular vision. And this the Titmus flight test is the most commonly used. These are the other tests of fusion and the Wirth-Fodor test all of us have in our ophthalmic units. It tests the peripheral fusion on distance and foveal fusion on near. Next step is to diagnose whether the child has amblyopia or not. And in this, the fixation pattern is very, very important. So if the child is not fixing properly, or if there is a fixation preference to one eye, then indicates that there's a problem with the vision. Of course, in older children, it's much easier to diagnose amblyopia. Coming to the motility examination, the first thing we notice is the head posture. So in the head posture, we have three components. One is the face turn, the chin elevation, and the head tilt. So many a times, this head posture itself will give a clue to the differential diagnosis. The second step is to see the cover test. So, however, cover test requires a cooperative patient with a good central fixation. It has three components: the cover test, the cover uncover test, and the alternate cover test. So here we see the cover test. So we just place the occluder over the fixing eye and look for the movement of the other eye. So here it's coming in from outside. So this patient has a exotropia. In the uncover test, you look for the movement of the eye under the cover. So this is useful in diagnosing phoreas, the latent strabismus. Coming to the alternate cover test. So here you dissociate the two eyes by placing an occluder like this, you can see. So thereby you get a total deviation, the tropia plus the phorea. So this is a very important test. So it gives us accurate diagnosis of the amount of, the deviation, the total tropia plus the phorea. Next is to see the ductions and versions. Ductions are uniocular movements and versions are binocular movements. So then we see the vergences, the convergence and the divergence. So after having done the cover test, we go to the last step, that is measuring the deviation. So normally the commonly used test for measuring deviation is one of the Hirschberg test, the Krimsky test, and the prism bar cover test. There are other methods also which can be used. Coming to the Hirschberg test, which measures the angle in terms of degrees. So here, if the examiner sits right in front of the patient and is exactly behind the light source, and if the light is in the center of the pupil, then the eye is orthotropic. If the light reflex falls at the pupillary border, then you have the 15-degree squint. If it is between the pupil and the limbus, then it is 28. And if it is at the limbus, it is 45 degrees of strabismus. So Krimsky measures the same Hirschberg test with the help of prisms. So here you place a prism with the apex towards the deviation in front of the fixing eye. so that you observe for the movement of the deviating eye. So once you center the deviation, then that is the angle of strabismus. So here you can see in this, sorry, video is not playing, I'm sorry. Next is the alternate prism bar cover test. This is actually the very important one because it measures the total deviation. So here we dissociate the two eyes and then movement. I'm sorry, the video is not playing. So here we dissociate the two eyes and measure the moment of redress by increasing prisms in front of the deviating and the fixing eye. And this test is done for distance and near, with and without glasses, and in all the directions, 9 directions of gaze. So once you have all these tests, you will come to the diagnosis, and in some cases you may require a special test like the diplopia test or the Park 3 steps test or the post-duction test. And cycloplegic refraction and fundus examination is the most critical part, which should never be missed in any case of strabismus. Coming to the treatment, the first step will be to do a proper cycloplegic refraction, give the glasses. Next, you treat the amblyopia, and then finally correct the deviation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a straightforward question to ask Dr. Pradeep Sharma. What is the role of measuring AC by A ratio when the near esotropia is more than distance?
So I'm impressed by Dr. Chitra getting so much well-versed with our pediatric ophthalmology. So real salutes to that. So the AC by ratio is really important to differentiate. A high AC by ratio would cause a convergence excess esotropia. So in cases of esotropia, you should be seeing if the esotropia is more than 10 prisms on the near fixation, that may be because of a high AC by ratio. Similarly, in the exotropias also, the AC by ratio would have a bearing in the presentation of the distance near disparity. And it may also have a bearing in taking care of management, like if you have a high AC by ratio and a person having a divergence excess, one may use a high myopia over minus correction may be given.
Then how does a high refractive error influence measurements when it is done over the glasses?
Yeah, I think that's a very excellent question, because high refractive errors will induce prisms. So when you're having a spectacle correction for high refractive errors, it will induce a prismatic deviation. So one has to be careful about it. And there are tables available, or there is a formula which is there, which you can take care of. That amount of the deviation will change as per the induced prismatic effect.
Does it make sense to stack one prism over the other when measuring large deviations?
Yeah, I think that's again a very important point that Dr. Chitra is making aware for the PGs and residents, that one should not stack prisms one over the other, especially if they are in the same axis. For example, horizontal over horizontal will make it, it's not 2 + 2, 4, it becomes 2 + 2 = 5 in that literal sense. So the measurements would be wrong. But you can stack a horizontal over a vertical if you have to do, but always split the two prisms between the two eyes so that we do not have this error of measurement.
Okay. Oh yes, Dr. Kavita is there. Thank you very much.